All right, welcome to another Small Business Pivots. Today we have another special guest from around the world, and this guest is almost in my back door, the great state of Oklahoma. We are featuring Oklahoma business owners this summer, and I know that no one can introduce themselves and their business like the business owner. So I always let you do the introductions so you can say it like you want it said.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So my name is Josh Cochran, and I'm with Diverse CTI. We are an IT managed services company, and we specialize in basically managing the IT infrastructure for small to medium-sized businesses that have really reached that point where the hourly IT guy is really not a match anymore. And I always tell people, it doesn't always mean that, you're frustrated or you think your IT guy isn't doing a good job. A lot of times it's just related to the maturity of the company. You reach a point where you need something a little bit deeper, a little wider, maybe a little more technical expertise. And that's usually when companies come looking for me and my team. So
Awesome. Awesome. So we've got small business owners listening. How do you think we're going to help them best today?
one of the things that I think just recently, maybe in the last 4 to 5 years, that I've begun reflecting a little bit more. I've been doing this for 25 years. Been an entrepreneur for 25 years. My dad started the company that I'm in right now 40 years ago, maybe almost 41 years ago, back in 1984. So I was kind of raised in that entrepreneurial, environment, and really saw my dad grow the business. And recently, I've kind of had a little bit, maybe more of an epiphany that I've always seen myself as an entrepreneur because I've started some other businesses. I'm in another business with one of my best friends, and it's in the automotive industry. But this is really my passion, Diverse CTI. But I think I've maybe realized that this is somewhat of a second generation entrepreneur journey. And that's been an interesting lens to look back, through the years on, because I don't think I ever really looked at it that way. I looked at, it was like me and my dad, and we were partners, and I'm one of the lucky ones. My dad and I are still best friends. He's retired now. He retired in 2019, and so that kind of caused me to start looking at things a little differently because I'm kind of on my own at this point. He's been an excellent partner through the years. But anyway, just recently, I've been kind of realizing that in some ways, the journey of a second generation entrepreneur is very different than just starting the business from scratch, which I've also done. I've done both of those. So my other business that I'm involved with, my best friend is a $2 million, gross revenue business as well. So I kind of have both sides of it, and I'm realizing, for whatever reason, I didn't really think of Diverse CTI as a second generation business. I just
It is
probably
different.
because I grew up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is different. Being a business coach and working with family businesses, generational businesses, partnerships, they're all different. And so I think we're going to be able to help them a lot with some insights that you've got, some tips and all that good stuff. So let's introduce the show real quick, and we'll be right back. Welcome to Small Business Pivots, a podcast produced for small business owners. I'm your host, Michael Morrison, founder and CEO of Boss, where we make business ownership simplified for success. Our business is helping yours grow. Boss offers business loans with business coaching support. Apply in minutes and get approved and funded in as little as 24 to 48 hours at businessownershipsimplified.com. All right, welcome back to Small Business Pivots. We're talking to a second generational business owner and family. Most family businesses are not pretty, but you said yours was. Can you give us first any insights of how that baton was handed off, because a lot of first generation business owners, they don't want to do that. And so you must
Right.
have proved something to them, led the company, kind of what was that scenario like for us?
Well, I have to give most of the credit to my dad. I mean, him and I have he kind of raised me just in a very wonderful way in terms of I never felt that I was competing with my dad. I never he treated me as an equal in the sense of uh, giving me responsibilities and so forth. So a lot of that I just have to say kudos to my dad. It's just one of those rare individuals who um, just doesn't have a chip on his shoulder. So he was always open to my thoughts and my input over the years, which, obviously I was a kid,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
wasn't always good input.
Right.
But yeah, he was willing to kind of let me try things and fail and allow me to put the years in to kind of learn. And yeah, so in terms of why he felt comfortable, I think it was just when I was growing up, he told me, please don't just be in this business just because it is the family business. Don't do it because, I've done it. Go off, do your thing. If this will be here, if you want to be involved, you can be. And I actually early on didn't want to be. I thought, I really didn't want to live in my dad's shadow at the business. I thought that would be kind of what it would be like. And I wanted to have my kind of my own success, not like in a like a selfish, arrogant way or anything. Just wanted to kind of, it was more for me. Like I wanted to know, like, hey, I can go out into the world and survive, and that was important to me. And so, um, I went to school for an electrical engineering degree, and 2 years in, a couple things were going on. I was helping my dad with his website, which the .com boom was just going crazy. This was 99, 2000.
Yeah.
And I told my best friend at the time, he was going to school for a mechanical engineering degree. And I said, we're morons if we don't start a web business. We're just complete morons if we don't do this. This is exploding. And because I saw what was going on with my dad's business, he was selling phone systems online like crazy, just left and right. I mean, and I was kind of assisting him in the on the website side because I had kind of dabbled in some HTML programming and kind of taught myself how to do that because it looked fun. And uh, so my best friend at the time, and still is, he's the guy that we started the automotive business together. He said, "Okay, well, but I have no idea what should we do." And I was like, "I don't know either, but we need to do something." So we eventually, totally separate story, but stumbled upon an opportunity. We were car guys and into cars, and so um, we stumbled across an opportunity there that we thought would be worth pursuing. And while we were starting to build that business, I was fed up with college, just fed up. I just was like, this is not for me. It's not what I thought it was going to be. So I dropped out and kind of went full time into starting this business with my buddy. And my dad said, there's plenty of work over here on the website and running the online, part of the business. If you want to do that, you won't be a burden to your new business. And I thought that sounded great. So I jumped in to Diverse CTI and was working on the website. I built a website for my other company with my buddy, the automotive side, and so that's kind of how it started. That I got back into Diverse CTI full time. What I began to realize was that I really love, and this is kind of maybe something that the IT part of the business allows me to do. We would constantly be connecting with other business owners because you're making a big decision when you go with a new phone system or a new whole new network, and your IT guy, and all the infrastructure that goes along that with that. So I was interfacing with other business owners, and that was so much fun. I would learn their story, just like we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
I would learn their story. I would get kind of somewhat personally invested in the story, because we're installing IT infrastructure equipment and helping them manage it, which is like the foundation of their business, how they interact. And to do that, I have to ask questions like, how do your employees use their computers and their phones? And when your customers call in, who do they need to talk to and why? And, because we're making phone tree menus and programming the phone system to ring different areas in their businesses and so forth. So as I did that more and more, I just realized this is awesome. I love this. I really like this portion of it. It's like I'm a partner with these other business owners. I'm a part of their success, watching them grow. And that was a blast to me. So I think as I got into that, I was exposed to other business owners. I was exposed to other entrepreneurs, and that was very fulfilling to me. And I think my dad saw that spark, and so as the opportunities in the company kind of became available, I just kept taking on more responsibility and more responsibility until, really probably about 2010, I was basically running the whole company except for sales and the sales and marketing. That's kind of, he just kind of stayed in that side of things.
What would you say are some traits that your dad had that showed you how to be a good business person?
I think this is maybe one of the mysteries about being an entrepreneur, is just that tenacious drive, in sometimes in the face of everything telling you this is this, you shouldn't do this, this is the wrong way to go, right? Like, it's a bad time to start a business, or nobody wants this, or and those are all real questions.
Right.
And this is like the mystery of being an entrepreneur, is like, there's this small speck in everybody's story where someone's telling them, this is probably not a good idea. You're taking a big risk here. You're going to lose everything. What are you doing with your life? You're
Yeah.
even asking yourself that question, and sometimes that you really do, you should stop and quit. It's a bad
Yeah.
idea, right?
Right.
Like, but how do you know? Because like, so
Yeah.
there's something mysterious there, about being an entrepreneur, where you just keep going, and you just keep banging your head against the wall, and eventually there's a hole, and you go
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah.
So watching my dad do that, in the beginning, he has a really interesting story. He was working for Radio Shack selling phone systems way back in the day, if you know Radio Shack at all.
Yes. Wow.
Um, and he, at least in the small division of telephone sales, was number one in the nation. He
Hmm.
was the number one sales guy. And there was an old TG&Y store, if you remember back in the day,
Oh yeah.
TG&Y, kind of like today's Target, or um, maybe not Walmart size. I mean, Walmart's just a behemoth these days, but
Yeah.
a lot of department stores back then, and TG&Y was one of them. And my dad sold the whole nation, all of them. And the president of Radio Shack flew out to Oklahoma and went out in my dad's beat up brown pickup on a couple sales calls, and gave him, his national award, and also told him that, by the way, they would have to turn down the TG&Y deal, because Radio Shacks were franchises. And so there's no mechanism to put a trouble ticket in and have it go. And my dad's, saying, well, what do you think I've been doing this whole time? I've been calling all the franchisees and getting them in on all this whole deal. I've already arranged the whole thing. And he says, no, 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 we can't do it. So
Hmm.
that kind of kicked off the thought in my dad of like, well, what am I doing working for you, if
Yeah.
this was your vision. And so anyway, we were poor. I mean, we were poor. We were dirt poor. We lived in a mobile home out in Luther, Oklahoma, in the sticks, and it was about a 20-minute drive, 25-minute drive into Oklahoma City. So I watched my dad start his business, with a old Chevy Citation. He would drive in with enough gas to get into town and not enough gas to get back.
Mm.
And he would go door to door and knock on businesses and meet them and cold call and hope there was something he could get done and get paid for that day to make it home. So, if I tell that story too long, I start to get a little choked up because,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I watched him do, and so looking back, that tenaciousness and that spirit of just never quitting really affected me. I think there's more to being an entrepreneur than just that, for sure. So,
It's always important and encouraging to have a role model. And I know that that story touches a lot of entrepreneurs' hearts because as a business coach, a lot of business owners will say, am I the worst business you've ever seen? Am I the only one going through this or that or whatever? And I'm like, no, be encouraged. We all go through it. Now, if that makes you happy, probably not, but just know you're not alone. And so sharing that story is important. You started off the show when we were talking about, you said second generation versus first generation versus grassroots. All what's been the difference that you've seen that could be helpful for our listeners?
Part of maybe some of the things that I'm seeing would be that, when you're starting a business on your own, I think you're very in touch with the things that it takes to start the business, what makes your product attractive to your client, because you're just right on the front lines. And you kind of have an idea maybe in the beginning of what you want to do, and maybe you have identified that there's an opportunity there that you can take advantage of and create an opportunity and create value for people, and you're very much tweaking that idea as you go through and molding it. And so you're a lot at first gen, you're very in tune with the product and what it means to your clients and the value that it has to your clients. The second generation didn't always necessarily go on that journey with the first generation, and so there's also the added maybe risk of, now there's something to lose. In the beginning, there was nothing to lose. You had nothing.
Right. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you can make wild swings or try new ideas, and there's nothing to lose because you don't have anything.
Right.
But with second generation, now you've got something, and if you make the wrong decision or you take it in the wrong direction or you try something too risky, there's skin in the game. There's something at risk, and so, and you haven't, the person who's taking over hasn't necessarily proved anything. They didn't start the business necessarily. Um, I'm really kind of in a weird situation in the sense that I'm maybe not second fully. I'm like 1.5,
Yeah.
because in many ways I grew up with my dad in the business, and he did just such a good job of making me feel like we were together, even though I was just a kid.
Mm.
I would go run cable with him in the ceilings. I would go do stuff in the summers with him. And so in one sense I was part of it. But the piece I missed was, that day to day, everything's on the line. That part I didn't know that, and I shouldn't have. Like, I was a kid, right? My dad's not going to, and I'm glad he didn't. I did. We were poor, but I had no idea. I was just happy as a lark.
Yeah.
So by the time I got to 12, 13, my dad had really begun to see some success, and probably by the time I was 15, we were building a 5,000 square foot house out in Luther. And so dad did well, and I saw that. So second generation, I think, struggles probably a little bit with just of that connection of, what the journey that you went through. But now there's something that you can lose. And so what's the connection to that? And the other funny thing maybe too is just that I wanted, mostly for me, as I was working in the business, I didn't want people to treat me differently because they knew my dad and had a relationship with my dad. I wanted them to interact with me because of me and who I was. And if I felt like if they knew that I was related to my dad, that I wouldn't get a good solid read from them on you know on my relationship with them, right? Like, are they treating me? So I would not tell them that I was related to my dad. We had
Yeah.
enough employees, at that point where I would call him we would go into meetings. I would call him Tom. I
Mm.
wouldn't call him Dad, and not because I had any kind of disrespect for my dad or whatever. It was just simply for me. Like, I wanted them to treat me for me and not know, and and also maybe tell my dad, hey, this Josh guy is a loser. He is. I don't know what you're doing. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted my success to be disconnected from my dad's success, so that I knew I had a real feedback about what was going on. Um, in a sense, I wanted to prove myself and know that I was standing on my own two legs. So that was another thing that I kind of struggled with. Um,
What were some of the pivots you made in your automotive business that you could share with our listeners? So they could have been pivots that were for the good or the bad or the ugly, but some pivots that you made that would be worth sharing.
In the automotive business, okay, so automotive upholstery is what we fell into. We had a buddy of ours. That's how that business started. Our buddy of ours, we were car guys. He took some guys down to Dallas on a trip, and one of them burned a hole in his back seat with a cigarette on the way
Oh my
down to
gosh.
Dallas. And so he called us and he was like, "Man, somebody burned a hole in my back seat and I don't know what to do." And his cloth interior, and he's like, "I thought of you guys because you're car guys and And so I had already had the conversation with my buddy Eric about starting that business, or starting a business. And so we had been going back and forth, like, what are we going to sell? What are we going to sell? So Eric gets on the phone with a local upholstery guy, gets connected. Long story short, finds out that this guy that there's these manufacturers out there that sew a whole interior kit. They already have the pattern. And back in that day, it was usually the upholstery guy would do the whole kit. He would pattern it. He would take your cloth off. He would very carefully cut all the seams and re-sew a kit for your car. So recently, this had kind of was a new thing, and so he, anyway, this guy offered it as a kind of a cheap solution. Like, hey, I've never done this before, but we could order this pre-sewn kit, and I'll give you a discount, and we'll see what if it's any good. So our friend went for it. Eric went down to watch him put it in because he just thinks that's cool. And while he's watching him put the kit in our buddy's car, he calls me and is like, "Bro, I've got the idea. Like, we can sell these online. They're already pre-sewn." And so I'm like, "Sweet, that's awesome." So anyway, long story short, we kicked that business off, um, and grew it just grassroots. We were car guys. We would drive all over the nation to these different car shows, and just it was kind of like just fun. It was just a
Yeah.
blast. But during that time, we built a shop that could do some actual sewing. Like, there were some cars we couldn't find kits for, but we were like, "Dude, this is a cool car, man. We want to do this." And so Eric taught himself how to sew, and I was doing website stuff, and so we built some production capacity, and we were approached by some various different companies over the years that wanted to see if that production capacity might be applicable to some other things. So, for instance, there's a golf manufacturer that wanted this guy makes custom one-off putters that are like 5-6 grand, and yeah, and he's like a master CNC machine guy, right? So he would put these blocks of like tungsten in, and he would do this AutoCAD, basically this drawing, and it would mill out this just amazing putter head out of tungsten, right? And uh, it's crazy. So he wanted a really cool leather putter head cover that would go over, and because of our production capacity, we could make something like that. And so we designed it and made it. And so that's maybe a pivot where we've added in kind of almost like a boutique leather uh, product, that
Mhm.
would allow us to. That's not really automotive related at all, but we have the ability to do that.
So being adaptable, open to opportunities. I know a lot of business owners, we get so stuck in what we do that we're like, I don't have time to do that. And that sounds like it served you well to do that.
Yeah,
So let's talk about diverse, because cybersecurity is a big thing right now, and it has
yeah,
been. It's,
yeah.
as they say, it's stood the test of time, and I don't think it's going anywhere soon as well. It's just getting crazier with AI and everything. So can you share a little bit about that? I don't even really know where to start because it's so many moving parts, but maybe just some tips, insights for business owners. Here's some red flags. Here's why it's serious. Here's some things not to do. Make sure whatever those high level things are that you see a lot of in businesses that they can stay away from or at least be alert.
The crazy thing is I like some portions of history, and it's interesting to go back and study, like the old pirate days. Um, Basically pirates would, they'd get in a ship and just go attack anybody they wanted, and it was an all out battle, and the oceans were like this free for all, and in essence, that's the internet. So the oceans of yesteryear are like the internet of today. And back in the day, if you wanted to protect, you were a merchant, and you wanted to protect your ship, you had guys on the ship with you. You had military guys that trained and were ready. So we're back in those days, crazy enough. It seems just crazy to think about that, but that's really a great comparison to nowadays. Everybody's information is on the internet. That's how we do business nowadays. I don't know anybody that doesn't have an email address, or a
Yeah.
website or some kind of web presence. I mean, or take payments, credit card payments, online. We all do business online. And so it used to be that cyber attackers were after your data to lock it up, what we called ransomware, right? They would install something, some malware, some virus that would lock all your stuff up. It would encrypt it, and then you'd need to pay them in order to get the key, the encryption key back. And that was the ransomware game that we're all probably pretty familiar with at this point. Um, with the sophistication of AI, and since AI has now come out, there's been a major shift to not just a ransomware attack, a business right away. Get in, establish a foothold inside the business, a piece of malware that allows remote access, and then harvest data. And so I'll give you an example of what that looks like. We had a client come to us and they said, we've got some really funny things going on with our email. We like some of our customers call, they're getting emails that we didn't send them, but they're from us. And so we said, well, someone has hacked. We did a little bit of investigation. Someone's hacked in to your email system. And essentially what they did was they used AI to scan through thousands and thousands of emails and build a list of that business's clients, look at the amounts that they were being invoiced, and then what they did was they chose a weekend and they created an invoice that looked exactly like this business's invoice, and they mass emailed it out on a Friday at 4 o'clock, which is a great time to email emergency emails, because everybody walks in, or maybe it's over the weekend, they realize, oh my goodness, they got this email, and the business that got hacked is closed, so there's no one to call, and the invoice was accompanied by the email, which basically said, hey, this and such company, we're so sorry to inform you, our bank account has been hacked. We don't want you to remit any payments to our current to the bank account you've been using. Please use our new bank account, which is safe. And then, here's the invoice. So over the weekend, the hacker was paid about 150 grand to
Holy moly.
his bank account, to the hacker's bank account.
Yeah.
Right. So it worked extremely well. So these attacks are getting sophisticated, because with the use of AI, I can just tell it, scan through all this stuff, tell me what the average amount of these invoices are, and I can whip up a little copy of your invoice. So it's evolved to the point where you need these, a little bit more of a sophisticated approach, and your average IT guys are probably still back in the old antivirus days, where they're just looking for, like, the mug shots is kind of what I compare it to. They're looking for the virus and saying, does this match my mug shot? And now we need to look at behaviors. We have to look at, hey, Michael Morrison logged in to his network at 3 a.m. from Bangladesh. That's weird. And
Yeah.
then he remoted from his personal machine over to the server and created an admin account. That's weird. Oh, by the way, he's changing all the password,
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So we need something a little bit more sophisticated. I sat down with another client and they said, we've never been hacked. And I said, well, why are you saying that you've never been hacked? And he said, well, no one's ever sent us a ransom demand. And I said, that doesn't mean anything these days. There might be on your net. If you're supplying them with enough data and information, you're like an oil well. They're just harvesting information from you, and you don't know it, because you have nothing on your network that tells you that you've been hacked. You just have an antivirus on there. So that's really the environment that we're in right now. So what can you do? There was really some questions that you asked me earlier. What can a small business do? Well, number one.
You're listening to Small Business Pivots. This podcast is produced by my company, Boss. Our business is helping yours grow. Boss offers business loans with business coaching support. Apply in minutes and get approved and funded in as little as 24 to 48 hours at businessownershipsimplified.com. If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share it as well. Now let's get back to our special guest.
Now, so what can you do? There was really some questions that you asked me earlier. What can a small business do? Well, number one, multi-factor authentication is like the maybe a huge thing you can just enable and put on right now, especially with your email. So Office 365 or Google Workspace are the two number one and number two. You can argue which one's which, but that businesses use either Google for their email or Office 365. And you can go in the admin console and you can begin to turn on multi-factor authentication for all of your users. And that's essentially like when you log in, the little thing that pops up that says, hey, is this you? Did you log in? And you hit yes. It's me. And what that does is it just gives you that second factor of identity verification. So even if your password is exposed, it doesn't matter because they don't have your cell phone. Um, the Some of the other things that you can do, number one would be multi-factor authentication, but make sure that you are not an admin user on your network or your Office 365 account or Google account. Make sure you create a separate admin user, and then make sure everyone else is just a regular user, including yourself. And that way, what that does is if you do click on anything, that piece of malware only has access levels that your regular user has. They don't have admin privileges. And a lot of business users do this. They're the ones that set up the Google account. They're the ones that set up the Office 365, so they're admins. Well, that means if you click on any malware, that malware has all the privileges and access that an admin privilege has, right? So even I don't do this at my office. I work in my Josh profile, and it has regular locked down privileges. I can't do anything. If I need to do an admin, something administrative, I log out as Josh, log in on the admin account, do what I need to get done, then log back out and log back in. It's like cyber hygiene, right? It's like a surgeon washing his hands.
Yeah.
So do the stuff you need to do in the admin account, but don't live in that account. Don't work in that account. And that's a huge protection against these malwares being able to install themselves and do things.
I know one of the questions that a lot of business owners ask me is, what joy do these people have in doing this? Like, why is it so rapid out there? Like, just
Yeah.
why?
That's a great question. The Association of County Commissioners is one of our clients, and I gave actually a presentation on this. And there's some really well-known hackers out there that have been asked this exact question. One of the most famous one is the Catch Me If You Can guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
from the movie with Tom Hanks and DiCaprio. So that guy was interviewed. And by the way, the book is way better than the movie. If you read the book, it's like there's so much better stories than in the movie. This guy is just absolutely amazing. But it's really about the challenge. It's
Mm.
about the challenge of being able to get in. It's like a game, and you could compare it to the same as these guys that go out and mountain climb and do the squirrel suit, fly through the air. These adrenaline high stakes type personalities. It's about the challenge. They want to see if they can do it, if they can get in and trick people, and what they'll fall for. And the other thing I would say that's a big game changer has been Bitcoin. If I wanted to steal your data before Bitcoin, I would have had to have you and lock your data up. I would have had to have you send me a check or wire me money or give me cash. That would be a very, very big risk on my part, because you could call the FBI and be watching the drop-off location, or if it's a wire transfer, that goes through all kinds of federally controlled, financial institutions that have all kinds of ability to track money. So it was very difficult for me to steal money from you. But with the invention of Bitcoin, you can now transfer funds completely without anyone ever knowing. You're anonymous. There's no way to track it. There's ways to guess, and the feds do this. Like if they see $10,000 got, debited over here and 10 grand got, credited over here, they can try to make a guess. But that's all it is. It's just a guess. So Bitcoin has changed the game for hackers. It's made it where you can send funds and I can route those completely anonymously. So does that make sense? Like
Hmm.
that's been a massive, massive boon to the hacker community. The ability for financial transfers to happen completely anonymously.
What does a company do with when they have employees? So you can only say so much. Be cautious about opening this email. If it looks like
Yeah.
this, don't open it. But it still happens. I mean, these people are good. I just got one last week that someone had created through Canva, and it was a PayPal, and it said this in, kind of like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And back in the day, you could look at the domain name and you could see like a number in there or something that wasn't right. But it was legit, the whole thing. I sent it to Canva and they're like, thank you for sending this. We're trying to track these down, because they're using these fake PayPal invoices through
Yep.
Canva. So it looks like it came from Canva. But
Yeah.
what can you tell your team? Like, there's only so much you can tell them, and somebody's just going to accidentally click something that looks legit, and then boom, your whole company's
Right.
exposed.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're kind of crossing into the territory where you're going to have an expert. You're going to have a piece of software that can lock this kind of stuff down. Um, and there's some really great software out there that can create what we call a whitelist. A blacklist is not so good because the blacklist will say, stop this specific thing. That's what a blacklist, right? Stop this. A whitelist is the opposite. It's block everything. Only allow these things, right? This is all that can run. So we have a software that we load instantly when we come into a client situation that is a whitelist. It only allows, and that whitelist includes the launching of the very particular files like executables and Word documents, and it creates that list. It knows what those things should be allowed to run. So that's a big help, because yes, you're right. People are gonna click on that stuff, and so having some of these more sophisticated tools. The new version of antivirus, or what's replacing antivirus and has for a while now, is called EDR, which is endpoint detection and response. So we want something, like I said earlier, that's watching behaviors of the software. It knows how a software should behave. It knows what directories it normally gets into and saves files to. So if it starts seeing that piece of software misbehave and do something, it can shut that down immediately. And these softwares are not super expensive, when you work with an expert, like me, or other guys like me, because they're bulk buying them, right? So, and that's the whole point, is getting with an expert that's got access to this kind of stuff and bringing some of those enterprise level technologies down to the small to medium sized business level.
I meant to ask this earlier, and I know, is it a risk or reward, but about the two-factor authentication. I know for a lot of business owners, they see that like that's absorbs so much of my time, right?
Yeah.
But the risk is, okay, you don't do it and you're putting your, but is there anything out there that can help them, because if you did that with QuickBooks, you did it with emails, you did it with all these different softwares, you're going to be on your phone all day. Is there a
Yeah.
hack that someone knows, that software that says, yep, go, yep? Because that's the
Yeah.
biggest complaint I hear from business owners.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a great technology that's baked into a lot of your more commercial grade cybersecurity firewalls and some different things, that's called single sign-on. So what you do is you're creating a safe space through API secure communication and encryption keys. It's almost like you're pre-logging in to QuickBooks
Hmm.
and all the different softwares you need to do. And it's like you pre-log in with these encrypted keys, and that safe space has one password and one multi-factor authentication, time point, right? So it's kind of like one ring to rule them all. If you're a Tolkien fan, that's a little helping all the nerds out there. I'm raising my hand as a nerd, so
You
right.
just called yourself out.
Yeah. So it's basically you click on that single sign-on window, and inside that we have loaded all of those cloud applications and places that would normally require that. But since we've digitally used keys to kind of pre-sign into that safe space,
Hmm.
then there's only the one, right? Single sign-on. So it takes a little bit of work to set it up, but it's worth it kind of in the long run. Does that kind of make
Absolutely. Yeah,
sense?
no, that's perfect. And then I've got a question. So the ransomware you were talking about, where they take your data for ransom, what is a company to do? Should they immediately run to you first? Do they call the FBI? I mean, what do they do once their data has been compromised and they can't get it?
Yeah. Well, probably the first thing that I would recommend that companies do if they have been hit is to call their insurance company. Their insurance company, usually there's a cybersecurity element to that. I hope there is. If there's not, you need to be talking to your insurance company. And if you need a good insurance guy, I've got a couple that are great. We make no money on cybersecurity insurance. It's actually against the law because we're not agents. We're not insurance agents. We
So
can't.
you're
We can't.
recommending people, if they don't have it
Yes,
or don't know, go get some cybersecurity
go get
insurance.
some. Yeah,
Okay.
and the kind you get is a big deal because a lot of times in the fine print, these insurance companies are requiring you to do multi-factor authentication. You better have EDR loaded. You better have a whitelist type program. You better have a yearly penetration test done on your network. And if you don't, so sorry, we're not going to pay your claim. So this is the other thing we run across is nobody's looking at these policies. They think that they're covered, and it turns out they're not covered because they're not doing these
The
things that the insurance
requirements.
company, yeah, which it makes sense from their side, right? It's like, well, otherwise it's just Russian roulette. If you don't do this,
Mm.
it's just a matter of time. You're going to get hacked. So um, but if you're not doing those things, you're throwing your money away at the insurance company. So if you have cybersecurity insurance or you have insurance, you call them. A lot of the insurance have a cybersecurity response or an incident response team
Mm.
that they've already made. They're going to be the insurance is going to be paying this claim, so they've already engaged a remediation team and a incident response team company to do that. The second call would be to a guy like me. If you don't have one, you can call me. But if you've already got a guy, call him, of course, immediately. What you don't want him to do is go in there and kind of blunder and mess everything up because you need him to. If you do have a remediation team, they're going to want to get in and look at things. And this is where having a solid backup and disaster recovery plan is absolutely you got to have that. So with all my clients, backup is like the flip side of the coin to your cybersecurity, right? If you get hit, if you've got a solid backup, then you can just restore from that backup and you're good to go. And this is why you need an immutable backup because hackers know that if they don't get to your backup and corrupt that backup, then they know you're just going to restore from that backup. So they're not stupid. This is the other reason why they don't immediately ransomware your whole network. They're going to try to find your backup and corrupt that and then ransomware you because
Hmm.
then you've got nothing to restore from. So an immutable backup is a backup that backs up offsite and then that connection is severed. And that file that gets written, it can't be written over. It can be read by you, but it can't be written to. It's immutable.
Hmm.
So it's basically kind of hacker proof. And then we always pair that with understanding from the client's perspective how old can that backup be, right? Because if it's a backup that say from last month, that may you've got 30 days maybe of data that you lost, and I don't know what it will take you to re-enter all that data. Maybe you can, but maybe if it's all in the cloud, you don't have any paper to re-enter it from. So a recovery point in time
Hmm.
is important to establish, and a recovery time objective too, right? If you're an architect and you get hit and you've got a bunch of AutoCAD files that are huge and massive that run on big servers, but your server's ransomwared, how, like it's going to take some time to wipe that server and reload all the stuff on there. So that's the other thing, is how quickly do you need to be back up? What's the recovery time objective? So I've got lots of great little stories that I can tell.
Yeah, I bet. We're unfortunately about out of time, but I do have another question because another big thing is I heard a business owner not too long ago say I should be fine. I'm all my stuff's in the cloud. So in other words, I think they were saying all my stuff's on Google Drive. Is that just
Right.
as vulnerable as your computer?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a misconception with a lot of people, is they think that Office 365 or Google is backed up. It's not. It's redundant, meaning there's copies of your data that are being replicated. But if I'm a hacker, I can corrupt that data, and all Microsoft sees is that the data it changed. So they replicate it across all their servers. It's not a
Mm,
backup. It's
yeah.
like it's a live copy in case they lose a data center. If your Dallas Microsoft data center goes down, no problem. They've got a Chicago one that they just switch you over to instantaneously. You don't even know, and your live copy of your data is there. But it's because it's been copying back and forth. So as a hacker, I just need to ransomware your OneDrive. There's no backup.
Wow. Well, I know you've piqued the interest of a lot of listeners. I know you have me. So where's the best place to follow you to learn more?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can look me up, Josh Cochran. Our website is www.diversecti.com. And that's diverse, just like the word diverse, and CTI like computer, telephone, integration, or internet, or whatever you want to throw in there. But yeah, diversecti.com is a great place to go. And yeah, you can fill out any information there. We're happy to do. We have a free cybersecurity assessment tool.
Okay.
It's absolutely free. It's extremely powerful, and I already bought it. I get tons of uses of it. So I love helping entrepreneurs, and that's just a free tool. And if you need me, great. If you don't need me, no problem. I'm not interested in trying to sell you something that you don't need. I love being with other entrepreneurs and hearing their story. It's why I'm here with you today. This is a blast. So if you need me, great. If you don't, either way, I'd love to get you an assessment so you know where you're at.
Well, I want to encourage our listeners to go to your website because on your blog, you've got a very active, I mean, like every day or two, you're putting more
Yeah,
content up there. So for people that want to learn more, I encourage them to go to your website and check out your blog as well and follow you on LinkedIn. So I end up with one last question. And so if you were in a room full of entrepreneurs, different businesses, different sizes, seasons of business, what is something applicable for all of them? So it could be a book they need to read, or maybe a tip or a trick or a quote, something you've learned. What's something that would be applicable to all of them?
man, my favorite thing to share with people is probably takes too long to go into, but there's a small. It's Kenneth Blanchard's 1 Minute Manager. And I love that. He basically breaks down how to go in and manage anybody for any task.
Mm,
And he breaks it down to either you are giving them support, or you're giving them direction, or you're giving them both support and direction. And so he's got a great method where you ask very simple questions. You're listening to see what stage they're in. Are they in stage one, two, three, or four? Stage one is you don't know what you don't know. And in that stage, you need to give them high direction and low support. In stage two, you now know what you don't know. And you need to give them high support and high direction. In stage three, you know what you know. You're kind of consciously competent. So you give them high support but low direction. And the final one is stage four, or style four. You manage them. They're like a Jedi master. They're unconsciously competent. They don't know what they know. They've been doing it so long they don't have to think about it. So you'd manage that person low support, low direction. So I find that right there gives people a framework to come and ask I tell them, I train my people on all of this when they come to me. They'll be like, I'm S2. And that tells me they need high support and high direction, right?
Hmm.
Because they've already done the work for me. Like they've diagnosed themselves. They know exactly. And here's the problem. If you're managing someone and they're an S3, they're consciously competent. They just need more support. Like they don't need to be told how to do it. They just, hey, what was the cost of that thing again? Like they don't need to know where to go get it. But if you don't know that and you're managing them with high direction, like, okay, open your browser, you're going to go to this site, they get mad, they get frustrated because you're telling them how to do the job. They already know that. So that is such an awesome framework to work with people in, because it gets you right what they need and everybody's happy.
That's sound advice, and that has not been shared on our podcast. And I know for those people that are aware of that book, it's a book, right?
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
whole series. It does a lot of different stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, for those that are aware of it, they're probably going, a business coach, never heard of that. Well, there's so much good information out there. We can't know it all. That'd be like knowing the
Yeah.
entire tax code. It's impossible. So,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah,
a new
yeah,
one to
yeah.
me. So I appreciate it. I'll put that in the show notes for people to find. Josh, you've
Yeah.
been a blessing to many and a wealth of information. I appreciate your time today, and I wish you continued success.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
My
I've
pleasure.
enjoyed it.
My pleasure. Thank you for listening to Small Business Pivots. This podcast is created and produced by my company, Boss. Our business is growing yours. Boss offers flexible business loans with business coaching support. Apply in minutes and get approved and funded in as little as 24 to 48 hours at businessownershipsimplified.com. If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share it as well. If you need help growing your business, email me at michael@michaeldmorrison.com. We'll see you next time on Small Business Pivots.